the first part of your conversation about it seems like the more you use your feather duster, the more dust you stir up. And we're going to play with you a little bit and suggest that maybe the feather duster isn't a good approach to dusting, and it certainly isn't a good approach to making decisions as you're moving through life anyway. In other words, just stirring up the dust or stirring up the trouble, that's not who you are. You're moving towards solutions. You're reaching for more happiness, which is our definition of more success. More effectiveness is really explicably tied to your happiness. And so, but we get the analogy that you're offering. When you first give attention to something, it does tend to stir it up, but it's up to you to settle it down. That's the whole point of the inactive box. And what you'll begin to notice is that thoughts will flow to you from a different point of view, and a different point of view, and a different point of view, and a different point of view. And as you tend to them, the inactive box, for those of you who haven't been following along with us recently, is a process whereby you create a box and put a hole in it so that you can drop a slip of paper, or Esther uses little business card size cards. And when you are aware that you are feeling some negative emotion, you acknowledge that you're feeling negative emotion. And you acknowledge that the negative emotion is because you have active within you a thought, an opinion, that your inner being doesn't hold. And so your quest with this inactive box, or this deactivation process, is to focus in a way that that thought is less active. In other words, not stirring it up by dusting all around it, by settling it down, by not giving it your attention. You don't want to blow on it, you don't want to focus on it, and you don't want to wave something all around it either. It isn't like that. You're wanting to deactivate it. It's a little bit like, you remember being kids? Esther remembers that her big sister said to her, you just don't know when to be quiet. You just say things and you just stir daddy up. You need to lay low. And Esther was too little to understand about laying low. She just blurted everything out. But her sister was not wanting to call any attention to something that she was worried would be attention that she wouldn't like the results of the attention. You've all been there, haven't you? Where you've just avoided eye contact or avoided a subject because you just didn't want what you thought would come next if you stirred somebody else up. Well, this inactive box is exactly like that, but it's not stirring something up that has been active within you that isn't serving you. And how do you know it's not serving you? You feel negative emotion. In other words, it's stirred up and active in you, but it's not stirred up and active in your inner being, because your inner being is not focused upon unwanted, is not pushing against anything. And so we would put the feather duster down and think of the feather duster in terms of stirring up trouble. Think giving attention to something unwanted in terms of stirring up trouble. You are right that the more you stir it up, the more you stir it up, the more you stir it up, the more it gets stirred up, the more it gets stirred up, because the law of attraction is really aware and focused and responding. The law of attraction brings other thoughts that are like it to you. But in time, you will notice, we are certain of this, it is our promise to you, that as you deactivate something, and you deactivate it, and you make it inactive, from this point of view and this point of view, in time, it will be inactive. Esther was playing a game this morning because she has discovered that that there are some conditions that are not really conducive to immediately going right to her inactive box and writing a card and dropping it in. And so this morning, for the first time, while Her hands had makeup on them as she was getting ready. She was pondering something, and as she pondered it, she thought, oh, that's something good for the Inactive Box. So she did something that she does frequently when she's driving. She says, "Hey Siri," and Siri says yes on her iPhone. And Esther says, "Send an email." And Siri says, "Who would you like me to send it to?" And Esther says, "Send it to Esther Hicks." And Siri says, "What is the subject line?" And Esther says, "Inactive Box." And Siri says, "What would you like the email to say?" And Esther said what she wanted the email to say. Release concerned thoughts about the opinions of others. And Siri read it back to her incorrectly and then said, "Would you like me to send it?" And Esther said, "No." And Siri said, "I can send it to someone else, or I can make the subject different, or I can change the message. What would you like?" And Esther said, "I would like you to change the message." And Siri said, "What would you like the message to say?" And so Esther improved her message by making it clearer for Siri to understand it. But Siri still could not understand it. And after the third attempt, Siri understood it and sent the email to Esther as she had intended it to be. Now, the reason that we're telling you this very long and quite comical story is because Esther discovered a few things. There are easier ways of going about things than others, and involving Siri in this process was not exactly the easiest way, but it did give her an opportunity to redefine what she wanted to say, and to say it in a number of different ways, each of them reducing resistance. But just like your story, just like your analogy of stirring things up, now Esther was frustrated with Siri. It stirred up a whole other thing. And so you might say you never get it done, and we certainly will go along with that. But by the time Esther finally got her message into the Inactive Box on her iPhone, she was laughing pretty hard at how important it seemed to her. She thought, need to lighten up about this. How frustrated she felt at one point, need to lighten up about that. In other words, you're right. She stirred up a whole bunch of other dust. But you know, in the process of having a strong intention and a willingness to go about it in whatever way that she could think of, it is our promise to you and to the question before and to the question before that good comes out of that. Good comes out of everything that you are involved in where your intention is for upliftment and improvement. Let's see another.